Sinungaling si Boying. Bumaba na siya. Yan ang gusto na rin ng taong bayan. Wala na siyang credibility. Mga PDL na galit sa akin. Sa tingin mo, kukunin ko yung mga yan para pumatay? Sabi ko nga 1 million times akong noon.
All those statements, instead of helping him, we are using that now as evidence against him to prove that he is guilty.
From the nation's capital, all sides, all the time, I'm Cito Beltran.
And I'm Danny Laurel, the big story tonight.
Suspended Bureau of Corrections Chief Gerald Bantag has finally broken his silence amid allegations of ordering the murder of radio broadcaster Percy Lapid.
In an exclusive interview with News 5, Bantag said it was Justice Secretary Boying Remulla who was actually behind the killing. Jenny Dongan with the big story.
Several days after the murder charges related to Percy Lapid's murder were filed, primary suspect General Gerald Bantag talks exclusively to News 5. The suspended Bureau of Corrections chief called Justice Secretary Boying Remulla a liar.
Sinungaling si Boying. Bumaba na siya. Yan ang gusto na rin ng taong bayan. Wala na siyang credibility. Unang-una, anak niya, innocent until proven otherwise. Sabi ng mga taong bayan, baka daw mayroong middleman pa. Sinasabi nila doon, mastermind si Boying mismo.
Recall that Remulla's son was arrested for drug possession last month. Bantag also revealed that he even sought an advice from Remulla on Lapid's commentaries against him.
Sinend ko yung video sa kanya, September 7. Very hopeful ako. Wala siyang sinasabi. Wala siyang reaksyon.
The embattled general added that the inmates involved allegedly serve as subordinates to Remulla.
Mga PDL na galit sa akin. Sa tingin mo, kukunin ko yung mga yan para pumatay? Sabi ko nga 1 million times akong noon.
Bantag assures authorities that he will face the murder complaints lodged against him through the legal process. Lapid's camp, meanwhile, refuses to buy Bantag's claims.
It was said in high octane emotion from him, and no person who is highly emotional in speaking is saying the truth. All those statements, instead of helping him, we are using that now as evidence against him to prove that he is guilty.
For the Justice Department, Bantag's statements are coming from a misguided sense of betrayal. DOJ spokesperson Miko Clavano said that Remulla and Bantag shared a strong and healthy relationship before the murder of Lapid. The DOJ said that a subpoena will be sent to all respondents for them to file their counter affidavits. For News 5, Jenny Dongon, We Are One News.
The preliminary investigation into the murder of Percy Lapid began today. Now, the focus of today's proceedings is following the money used to fund Lapid's killing. The investigation revealed that self-confessed gunman Joel Escorial initially received 200,000 pesos in his bank account for the murder. That amount was raised by several inmates involved in the case. Now, after Lapid was shot dead, Batang City jail gang leader Alvin Labra said he was called to the office of Bucor Deputy Security Officer Ricardo Zulueta. Zulueta supposedly handed him 4 brown envelopes containing 350,000 pesos in cash. The amount was later deposited to Escorial's account. Now, this brings the total amount used to fund the killing to 550,000 pesos. Upon receiving the full payment, Escorial supposedly shared it with the rest of the gunmen as well as to the alleged second middleman, Christopher Bacoto. Now, on the next hearing, authorities may tackle the murder charges filed by the NBI and PNP against those involved in the Lapid slay case.
To share his insights regarding the recent developments in the Percy Lapid slay case, we have with us attorney Danny Pelagio, legal counsel for the Mabasa family. He is joining us live via Zoom. Good evening, Attorney Pelagio. Welcome back to The Big Story.
Yes, good evening, Sito, and good evening, Danny, and good evening to all the viewers.
Okay, what is the situation for the Mabasa family as of this evening? Have you spoken to them recently? How are they taking all of these latest developments?
Well, through Roy Mabasa, who is the brother of Percy, we were able to talk to him, and he was very, very disgusted with the interview conducted with General Bantag today.
Danny?
Okay, Attorney, what is the reaction to Bantag's allegations, particularly on Justice Remulla being part of this?
Well, to sum up, today's interview of General Bantag is what I would describe as full of sound and fury, which eventually signified nothing. He ranted out bare denials without any iota of proof to prove his innocence of the accusations against him, and instead made a tirade of accusations and criticisms against Secretary Remulla. So, aside from that, he also introduced so many other issues not even related to the present case. So, for example, at one point he claimed that that the Secretary of Justice was out to oust him from his post. Yet he said that he already offered offered to resign. But accordingly, Secretary Remulla did not accept it. This is contradictory. If Secretary Remulla would wanted him to resign, he should have accepted the resignation. So these are the statements of Bantag today are full of inconsistencies and bare denials without any proof.
Okay, would the family be comfortable clearing the Secretary Boying Remulla of the allegations or accusations of General Bantag?
Well, so far, as of now, we are not aware of any proof or any link leading to Secretary Remulla. So, there's no point in clearing Secretary Remulla as of now because we don't have any proof of his involvement in this killing.
Okay, now regarding the preliminary investigation, how are things going? How was the case as far as the proceedings went? Are you okay with the pace of the way things are going?
Yes, especially with the although it was not yet it did not work out during the third preliminary investigation today, but Secretary Remulla has already constituted a 3-member prosecution panel to determine probable cause. Now, during the third preliminary investigation today, only Escorial and Bacoto appeared. And also, as far as the counsels are concerned, the counsel of Escorial was there, the counsel of Bacoto was there, and also the counsel of General Bantag.
So you're happy with the way the proceedings are moving?
Yeah, yes. It's moving because
Okay.
The counsel of General Bantag of Bacoto already submitted his counter affidavit.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
And then let me finish. And then the counsel of Bantag already inquired if the subpoena has already been sent. So I suppose the subpoena has been sent already through the council.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, do we have a date set already for the next hearing, attorney?
Yes, ito. The next preliminary investigation is on the 23rd of this month. We are expecting General Bantag and the other respondents to file their counter affidavits, but another preliminary investigation was scheduled on the 29th.
Okay, thank you very much, Attorney Danny Pelagio, legal counsel for the Mabasa family. Right after the break, we'll talk about the impact of President Bongbong Marcos's call out of Pyongyang's missile launches with Action for Economic Reforms researcher A.J. Montesa. That and more when the big story returns. Keep it here on One News. President Bongbong Marcos raised issues affecting peace and order in the Southeast Asian region during the 25th ASEAN-China Summit in Cambodia. He expressed concerns over North Korea's missile launches and also reiterated calls for a finalized code of conduct in the South China Sea. More details in this report by Mean Los Baños.
ASEAN leaders gathered for today's plenary meetings at the 25th ASEAN-China Summit in Phnom Penh, Cambodia. This afternoon, President Bongbong Marcos pushed for the finalization of a Code of Conduct or COC between China and ASEAN countries claiming rights over the South China Sea. The COC is intended to guide the conduct of states and reduce risks of tension over disputed waters. Marcos said countries must firmly choose cooperation over competition in the face of increasing geopolitical tensions. China was represented by its Premier Li Keqiang during the summit. Office of the Press Secretary has also confirmed that Marcos accepted an invitation from Chinese President Xi Jinping for a state visit to China in January. On the issue of Myanmar's current military rule, the president joined the chorus of ASEAN leaders calling for the speedy implementation of a 5-point consensus peace plan to address the crisis. This peace plan was created by the ASEAN and approved by the military government of Myanmar on April 2021, but has yet to be implemented. The DFA says it's important for the president to express his concern over the worsening situation in Myanmar.
It's worsening, di ba? In the last several months, nagkaroon ng increase because it's very important not only to the president but to us and to the entire region. In a sense, tinitingnan pa rin tayo bilang isa sa mga nasa forefront ng democracy and human rights in the region.
Meanwhile, President Bongbong Marcos raised concerns over the missile launches conducted by North Korea this year. The president thus called on North Korea's leaders to comply with the United Nations Security Council resolutions on the region's denuclearization. Pyongyang has launched at least 5 ballistic missiles this year, drawing widespread concern and condemnation. Reporting for News 5, Mean Los Baños, we are One News.
Despite soaring inflation, NEDA says the Philippines is bound to hit the government's economic growth target of 6.5 to 7.5% this year. The agency pins its hopes on the economy's good showing in the third quarter, bolstered by multi-sectoral growth as pandemic restrictions were further eased. Still, NEDA Undersecretary Rosemary Edilion says that high inflation remains a challenge for Filipinos. Edilion adds that the impact of typhoons, Karding and Paeng exacerbated the situation. To support growth and persisting high prices, Edilion said the government should make strategic investments in certain industries.
Para sa patuloy na paglakas ng ekonomiya natin, magkaroon po tayo ng mas maraming trabaho. Hindi natin kailangan, resilient yung recovery natin. So mukhang kailangan nating magbago rin in terms of the technology na ginagamit natin para mas resilient na tayo sa lahat ng bagay, so from transport to mga business processes natin, dapat mas magana na tayo, technology, mas mag-modernize tayo. And for this, we really need yung mga investments on yung mga strategic na industries natin.
To share his insights regarding President Marcos's pronouncements in Cambodia, as well as the NEDA's growth targets, we have with us via Zoom Action for Economic Reforms Program Officer AJ Montesa. Good evening, AJ, and welcome to The Big Story.
Hi, good evening, Cito. Good evening to all the viewers. Thanks for having me on.
Okay, beginning with the NEDA statement on GDP, it's looking like the Philippines will hit the government's target GDP for the year. But does this mean that the impact of inflation on consumption will come at a later time, like maybe first quarter of 2023?
Right. So the country's macroeconomic fundamentals remain strong recent GDP growth and employment trends actually do look positive. So GDP growth has exceeded 7% already for the past 6 quarters. And in terms of sectors, this has been driven primarily by gross capital formation as well as higher consumer spending. In terms of industrial sectors, construction has been strong while manufacturing has been recovering but seemingly been losing steam the past 2 quarters though. So for services, transport, as well as accommodation and food service sectors are experiencing strong growth in the post-pandemic recovery. So what we're seeing now is really the impact of the lifting of restrictions and how it's bolstering our economy moving forward. Unemployment is also down from 8.9% last September in 2021 to just 5% in September 2022. So it shows also that more and more of our economy is opening up. More Filipinos are also able to find jobs, right? So as regards inflation, I think it presents itself a threat as inflation has been reported to be 7.7% already. By commodities, it's been driven by rising prices in gas and electricity and in food commodities such as corn, sugar, and oils. So in response to this, Bangko Sentral has already signaled its aggressive approach by combating inflation as it raised policy rates by 75 basis points already just last week. And again, this is a response to what the United States has already done by also raising the 75 basis points in the policy rate as well. So I think if the government wants to be more effective in its combating of inflation, the BSP should continue to be aggressive. But at the same time, I think we also need to pursue non-monetary policies as well. So I think this is where agricultural policy can come in. It was mentioned that we were recently hit by several typhoons and we need to be more resilient. So I think agricultural policy will help to address the short-run issues of inefficiencies, for example, shortages in corn, in sugar, and all of these other food commodities as well.
Okay, now, is this growth being felt on the ground? Are poverty levels lower? Unemployment improved? Is life better than last year? What about this food crisis? You know, many of the opinion writers have been focusing on agriculture, etc., talking about food crisis this December. How can we be growing so much and yet have a food crisis?
Right. So that's a very good question. I think as regards the question of whether this is being felt on the ground, it's too early to tell. The latest poverty figures are from 2021, which showed that poverty did increase as a result of the pandemic compared to 2018. So we'll be producing the next updated poverty figures in 2024 still. So it's too early to tell. But the data says that at least we're on a path to recovery. So GDP growth has been consistent. Consumer spending has also increased. And the sectors that have been hardest hit by the pandemic, such as the transport sector, food and accommodations, and other services are also the ones that are recovering the most. So you can expect the workers in these sectors to be the ones who are recovering the most. So I think this is primarily benefiting the middle-class Filipinos. But as for the poor, I think this is where inflation will hit the hardest. As food prices go up, we can expect that this disproportionately affects poorer Filipino households who spend more of their income on food. So I think aside from agricultural policy that needs to address shortages in corn, in sugar, and even in fish, for example, the government also needs to continue to provide enough assistance, especially financial assistance, to those who are most affected by inflationary pressures.
Okay, AJ, last question. What about the President or President Bongbong's statement regarding having a unified stand on the South China Sea issues and calling out Pyongyang for its missile launches? Is this going to affect or benefit the economy? What's your assessment of those statements? And towards what results are they aimed?
Right. So we're coming into a context where the Ukraine-Russia crisis or war has exerted some substantial pressure on the economy as well, and it's an external threat that we need to address. So I think where the president is coming from is he also wants to exercise restraint in the international economy and international relations, where conflict is not good for recovery in general. So whether it's for the Philippines or it's for the ASEAN region, I think exercising restraint as regards potential conflicts is a good call to make for the global economy as we try to recover from the global pandemic.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, AJ Montesa from Action on Economic Reforms. Have a good evening. Right after the break, Gilas Pilipinas completes a stunning comeback to escape Jordan at the 2023 FIBA World Cup ASEAN qualifiers. That and more when the big story returns. Keep it here on One News. You're still watching the big story here on One News. Starting December 15, the Transportation Department will be offering free rides 24/7 along the EDSA Busway following the adjusted mall hours. For now, passengers can only avail of free rides from 4 a.m. to 11 p.m. The MMDA earlier requested the DOTR to extend the free ride program as early as November 14 when adjusted mall hours took effect. But Transportation Secretary Jaime Bautista says that as much as they want to, they have budgetary constraints. This will be the last phase of the free ride program in EDSA Busway as the agency's proposed 12 billion peso fund for the program was cut by the DBM under the 2023 national budget. For the big story in sports, Gilas Pilipinas pushed all the right buttons in the second half to get past Jordan. 74-66 in the 2023 FIBA World Cup Asian qualifiers on Friday morning. Trailing by 4 at the halftime, Gilas stepped up on defense and held Jordan to just 10 points in the third to take the driver's seat. It was all Gilas from that point as they extended their lead to a high of 14 to snatch the victory that pushed their record to 4-3. Kai Soto top scored for the Pinoys with 16 points and 7 rebounds, while Scotty Thompson had 8 points, 13 boards, and 8 assists. Gilas will look to sustain momentum as it wraps up the 5th window with a game against Saudi Arabia on Monday. And that's the big story. For more updates, follow News 5, The Philippine Star, and Business World online. You may also log on to onenews.ph for more in-depth analysis. I'm Cito Beltran. Stay safe, Philippines. We are One News, all sides, all the time.